I watched all of Death Note in one sitting. Yes, that means all 37 episodes, plus both the 2-hour specials and a 10-hour video essay on the series. Let's just say I feel like I reached Ultra Brain after seeing all these smart plays by L and Light. But anyways, I'm gonna give all my thoughts on the series without trying to spoil anything. I will have a point in the video where I do spoil some things, but I'll let you know when we get there. Other than that, just relax and enjoy my slow descent into madness, falling deeper and deeper into the Death Note world. Death Note isn't your typical shonen about fighting, it's about fighting with the mind, and it's much better than a certain trash ninja show I won't touch on. This shonen is about the battle of minds, and this anime finds a way to make a basic concept so interesting. The story revolves around this thing called a Death Note, a mythical item from the Shimigami realm, otherwise known as Hell. This notebook has the power to kill anyone. All you need to do is see the person's face and write down their name. You may be thinking though, how did this Hell notebook get to the human world anyway? Well, it's all thanks to a bored death god named Ryuk. All Ryuk wants is some entertainment since the Shimigami realm is so boring and all the death gods do is just sit around and gamble. It's because of this boredom that Ryuk drops the notebook into the human world and it falls in the hands of Light. Light is a high schooler who is top of his class and is bored since everything comes easy to him. It is because of this boredom he notices the Death Note fall from the sky, and he quickly runs to pick it up. At first he doesn't believe in it, I mean, who would? But since he's bored, he tries it out anyway, and kills this dude holding a preschool hostage. Light then plans to use this power to create a better world, getting rid of all those making the world worse. And this is Death Note's big interesting moral question. Should the bad people be killed? Is their death worth the prevention of the death of hundreds of others? It's such a good question that really makes you think. Do these criminals deserve a second chance? Maybe some, and others not. But that's besides the point. Light is obviously on the side of killing the criminals because he believes he has the ultimate idea of justice, and eventually falls so far from this, he believes anyone who opposes him are the truly evil ones. Obviously, all these criminals down around the same time made some people suspicious, and this emo guy appears from the shadows to solve the case. This emo dude is named L, and he's the smartest human on earth, solving every case he's ever taken on. So he is really excited when he hears the case of Light, since he loves solving puzzles, and in reality, he's taking on this case more for fun than just in the name of justice. L teams up with the MPA, aka the Japanese police, and this marks the beginning of the long cat and mouse game between L and Light, also known as Kira. If that premise doesn't pique your interest, then I don't know what will. Just go back to watching your trash ninja show. But to those who want to stay here and hear this story, I promise you, you won't regret it. Now let's talk about the characters. This is what makes Death Note so good. So obviously we have Light, or Kira, and also Ryuk, the first Shinigami introduced, L, and then later Misa. The main ones that make up the story and make it so interesting are Light and L. They are just so insanely smart and above everyone else, and they make plays that are so well done that the only people who can catch it are Light and L. L plays the role of the good guy who has almost no emotion and is only focused on the facts and solving puzzles. What a nerd. While Light is a lot more emotional, but is also tied with L in intellect, which in reality makes Light better because he's more well-rounded. But we'll come back to this idea later of who is better and take a closer look at their stats. As the story continues, we learn that Light's dad is chief of police and then is promoted to head of the Kira case under L. Since Light's dad is the chief, he is able to sneak on to work on the Kira case undercover as Light Yagami. From the start, L is suspicious of Light, and when he tells the chief about this, he freaks out because his son can never be Kira, since one of the chief's biggest priorities in life is raising his son to be a good man. He wants Light to be like him, an upstanding man with an unbreakable moral code. But as we know, this is far from the case. L reassures the chief that this chance of Light being Kira is only a 7% chance. But if you read the manga, it is said that L is notorious for lying, and usually says the opposite of what he actually believes. So why it says 7%, in reality it's more of a 70% chance, which isn't really opposite, but you get what I mean. A little tangent, but the thing I love about the manga version is we get to see a lot more of these inner monologues from Light and L, which the anime just doesn't show as much of. I mean, the anime shows some of these inner monologues, but not nearly as much as the manga. From this point on, everything Light does just grows L's suspicion until it eventually reaches 99%, and Light agrees to get locked in a jail cell, and if the killings of the criminals stop, he is Kira, but if they continue, he's innocent. Right? Wrong. That's what Light wants you to think. And to the average fool or task force member, this would be the case. But L knows that this is Light's plan. So L is really doing this just to hopefully slow Light's plan down. And the worst part about these psychological battles between these two is just no one else can pick up on it. All the holes and breadcrumbs that Light has left behind are only to be picked up by L. But to everyone else, Light seems innocent. This is what makes it a million times harder just to arrest Light on the spot, since the task force and the general public is going to need cold hard proof to prove Light is Kira. Something that sadly won't happen happen until much later. I've kind of skipped over a lot of important things, so let's backtrack. So around the beginning of the case, a person appears on the TV professing to be Kira, and proves it by killing the news people covering the story. Elle immediately notices that this Kira has a different personality, with them being more risky and not thinking through their plans as well as Light had. This leads to Elle and Light working together to uncover the identity of the second Kira. Instead, the second Kira hunts down Light first and introduces herself as Misa Amane. Heck yeah, this is when the show gets good. This is the real reason I watched the show 3 times. It's just for her. Whatever. Anyways, Misa is the second Kira and gives her undying support to Light since he killed the criminal who killed her parents. But how did she get the death note? Well, let me explain. Well, every Shinigami has a notebook, so that means plenty to go around. And oftentimes a Shinigami will watch humans from above to cure their boredom. But sometimes in a very rare cases, a Shinigami will fall in love with a human. In the case of Misa, a Shinigami named Gelgis fell in love with her, and one night when she was about to die, he saves her from her death. But this is a forbidden act. Shinigami are not allowed to interfere with the human lifespan in any way. The only thing they can do to affect the human world is drop a death note. So since Gelgis saved Misa, he dies. This is insane to think about. She led to the death of an immortal death god. Because of his death, another Shinigami, Rim, obtains ownership of the death note and brings it to Misa. Misa feels like she is the chosen one by Kira and wants to do everything possible to help him. Because of this, Misa makes a deal with Rim to have the Shinigami eyes in exchange for half of Misa's lifespan, which to a sane person is a horrible deal, and an offer Light actually turned down and laughed at when Ryuk offered it to him. But Misa's the one willing to make this sacrifice for the sake of Kira. Loyalty is a big part of Misa's personality, and while she may seem crazy, in the end she really does love Light and wants to help him reach his goal, even if it costs her her life. And also the Shinigami eyes give the person the ability to see the person's name and lifespan, which is very important for the story. Now with Light and Misa teamed up, he's unstoppable. He has the power of the Shinigami eyes with no expense to him, and he also has 2 death notes with the respective Shinigami. The fact that Elle is putting up such an incredible fight and making Light try with everything he got says a lot about Elle, and even with the gods of death on his side, he just can't kill Elle, because Elle has thought of all the outcomes and planned for every situation. This shows that while they aren't equal on paper, if you take the unfair power advantage that Light has, Elle will always come on top just because of his pure intellect. Alright, after all that yapping, I want to go on a little rant and speak about the music in this anime. This soundtrack is S tier, on par with soundtracks from Super Mario Galaxy and Your Lie in April. Most of the songs have an old Catholic vibe to them, with the choir that almost sounds like they're singing old hymns and singing the Smash Brothers Brawl theme. Other songs have a deep, dark atmosphere and make me feel a certain way I can't describe. Tracks such as Rim or Death Image are some of my favorites. All of these build the world so well and make the show breathe so many more emotions. Just mundane scenes like Light eating potato chips and killing criminals feel so much more action-packed, with the music feeling more like a Zora fight with King rather than just a teenage boy with a god complex writing names in a notebook. And that's a good segue into talking about Light's god complex, which is one of the most interesting parts about this show. One of my favorite themes in media is when a character has a god complex, since I'm a big fan of psychological themes, and Death Note is no exception. Light believes he is true justice, which is something I kinda touched on at the beginning of the video, but he just becomes so evil along the way and begins to live by the ideology of anyone who opposes the killing of criminals to be evil, which in part 2 of the story the media actually picks up on to brainwash the people, which is a popular tactic used by the media in the real world to sway the opinion of the public. People can have a warped view of right and wrong. Some humans can fall into the trap of whatever the most popular thing is the right thing. Since most people believe Kira is justice, then that becomes fact. Kira is justice. One of my favorite quotes said by Elle is, "If we catch Kira, he is evil. If he wins and rules the world, then he is justice." This quote basically just sums up the main idea and lessons of the entire series. By the end of the anime, Light is only chasing after a few things to fuel his god complex, whether that be plotting to kill his own family, killing innocent detectives, or using and manipulating everyone for his gain. The consequence of Light's goal is living eternity suffering, neither being able to go to heaven or hell, which is something briefly touched on by Ryuk. This shows that even though some humans may be stronger than others, in the end we're all equal because we are all mortal. And with that, it's time to move on to my last point. Who wins in the end, Elle or Light? Which will contain some spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to the timestamp on screen. In Death Note Volume 13 How to Read, there's a part of the book which shows the stats of all the main characters in the show, and it's interesting to look at. The stats are sorted into 5 categories: intelligence, creativity, initiative, emotional strength, and social skills. Even though L frickin' dies, him and Light are still at the top of the Death Note world. But before going straight into their stats, I want to point out a few other notable ones. First, Nier and Mello. Nier comes out to a 36 out of 50 and is severely knocked down by his social skills, but his intelligence is 2 points higher than Mello's, which is ultimately more important in the story. Surprisingly, Mello is higher than Nier with a 41 out of 50, which is mostly thanks to his social skills being a 9 out of 10, with Nier having a 1 out of 10. Misa has a 33 out of 50, with her initiative and social skills being a 10 out of 10, which I think is very fair. She took initiative to introduce herself as the second Kira, do the ideal, and find Light, along with a list of other things, which makes her worthy of this ranking. Now I'm going to quickly go through the task force rankings. Chief Yagami comes out to a 31 out of 50, Aizawa with a 28 out of 50, Mogi at a 34 out of 50, Ide with a 26 out of 50, then Ukita with a 29 out of 50, and poor Matsuda with a 26 out of 50. These rankings may seem pretty decent until you realize Misa is above all of them with a 33 out of 50, with only Chief Yagami coming close with a 31 out of 50. Now on to the main course. Light versus L. L is a 38 out of 50, even lower than Mello's ranking, but has high stats across the board apart from his social skills. This shows that these stats are not really a good indicator of who's better, cause I mean, come on, you're telling me Mello's better than L? At the very top of the food chain is Light with a 47 out of 50, with his lowest stat being initiative with an 8 out of 10, which does seem kinda low. All in all, I believe in the grand scheme of things, Light is better. Even though it isn't fair that he has a Death Note in Shimigami, that doesn't change the fact that he's better and more powerful because of this. Light is more well-rounded than L2, shown by his insane social skills. This is something Light is able to use to his advantage, while L's poor social skills hurt him, with L not communicating what he's thinking, which only slows the case down. There's many more pieces of the story I could touch on, such as Whammy's house, the orphanage created to find L's successor, the Yatsuba organization, and even Matsuda's undying support to Light until the end when it was all revealed. But I just wanted to summarize the most important points I had from watching the anime in a 10-hour video essay. So if you want more of a deep dive, definitely check out this dude's video. It was just insane the amount of effort he put into it. Now the conclusion and my final thoughts. I am so terrible at transitions. In the end, why do I think Death Note is a good show? Well, it's because of the message. Because in the end, after it was all said and done, no one won. The battle of minds was ultimately meaningless. All the pain and suffering felt by everyone in the end all stemmed from Light being bored. If only he didn't pick up the Death Note, none of this would have happened. No one wins. Light didn't create a better world, L lost Watari, and got killed by his only friend. Chief Yagami died believing his son wasn't Kira, the task force lost their chief, Misa ended up alone with no other purpose and commits suicide, Mello died, and Nier lost his mentor L and his friend Mello. Mikami didn't help Light create a better world, Light's mom lost her husband and her son, Light's sister now has to live on knowing her brother was a mass murderer, and the biggest loser of all is Light, because in the beginning he wanted nothing more than to cure his boredom and create a better world, but this god complex of his warped his mind, and in the end died to the hands of the being who granted him this power. This whole story ends in tragedy, with nothing being changed and the world quickly forgetting about these events and returning to evil. This is the story of Death Note.